Alright, boys and girls, this is DIY Dom the Builder coming at you. Today we're going to talk about how to replace a vintage window in an older style house you might find in a suburban type area. We have a window in our house. We decided to open them up to air out the house now that it's spring, and lo and behold, one of them broke. So fortunately we found this replacement. It's the exact same right size. So we want to remove it from this frame and replace it in the existing one that's in the house. So first thing that we got to do, that we kind of already started, is you got to go along the edges and you have to sand all this down because it's been painted. Because if you look closely, you'll see that what's holding the window in is this little tiny bead of wood that goes all the way around the edges. So once you sand all that down, you can remove it and then the glass will just come straight out. So got our handy dandy goggles because we're going to be doing a bit of dremeling here, and let's go ahead and show you how this is done. As you can see, it's a nice little paint stripping one that we got. We've used it a few times already. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a second while I get the rest of this window, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that we've cleaned up our edges, the reason that we just chose to use this Dremel piece is because of the fact that it is a nice little sanding tool, which I've used several times, so it's already worn down a bit. And it works really good as a paint stripper, especially on older wood like this, because it's not going to chew it up very much as you take the paint off. Just enough so you can expose and see this red line that we have here. You know, that line's going to let us know where the edge of the window pane stops and this little trim piece that holds it in, where that takes place. So once you get to that point, you can go ahead and pick up one of these little cheap 99-cent little extension blades, which obviously I've used a lot since I'm all the way towards the end. But what's nice about these blades, because they are so cheap, is the fact that they're very bendable. And if they do break or whatever, it's not a big deal. But by being pliable and flexible like that, it's nice because you can get it to slip in here between the window and the wood trim without it chewing it up. And it'll allow you to help separate it from the glass, because as you can see in some of these edges, this window is painted over several times, and that paint is now what's sticking it to the glass itself. So once you go all the way around the edges with this little knife, you'll see where you have this red line. Some places are gapped, some places it's paint filled, but then you can also use this knife to go ahead vertically and pull it through. Now you'll also notice as you're going around, as you hit certain spots, the blade's going to pop up and go back down. And where it does that, that's the indicator that that's where I have either a brad or a staple that's holding this thing in. So you can just come back and mark that with a Sharpie or whatever, just to let you know that that's where it's attached to the frame. And then once you get this completely separated, you can come back and pull out those pins. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we used our knife, and we went ahead and had it separated from the edges, which makes it easy for us to go ahead and remove it now. So what really helps out is a chisel. You could use a screwdriver. Chisel's nice. The wider it is, the better, just because that when you get it in here and you're prying it off, because this is older wood, it will allow you to spread that force out over a wider area and less chance of breaking anything. So when you do get your chisel in here, as we're starting to shoot right here, you'll see that this bends up nicely because it's free, but as I get more and more down, it's not wanting to separate here. That's probably because there's a little brad or nail or something that's right in here. So once you see that that's where the point is, you want to straddle that point as close as you can, get that chisel down in there. Obviously where it stops is right where that little piece is going to be, which you can hear. Okay, so Now that I know that that's where it is, I can go ahead and just slowly pry back and forth and work the wood off of it. Now as you can see, there's my little bugger right down in there. If I can get close enough. Right there. So if I can get down in there and get him off, I should be able to free this piece. And you see, they get to be pretty long. Now if you were using the chisel and really just wasn't working too well for you, I like to use this little automotive trim tool. It's good for taking out screws and stuff. But what I can do is I can get it down in here and I can actually straddle my little staple that's right down in here, and I can just kind of walk it off on both sides, as you can see. And that's usually also another... Alright, so now we have most of our trim all the way out of here, so we can remove this glass. And you can see that it actually lifts up pretty easily. But there's still going to be, every now and then, you're going to find that one of those little bugging brads are going to be left in there. So no worries, you just have to take it out. In this case, my tool of choice is a little pair of hemostats. Don't ask me where I got them, but they work really well because it can go into that brad real easily, or staple, whatever you want to call it. Clips it in real nice, and then you can just pop it out. That's easy. So clear all those up around the edges, and then your window should have no issue falling out. Be right back. Well, as you can see, our plan to go ahead and salvage the trim that was already existing in the frame really didn't work out too well. But like I always say in life, the one thing you can always plan on is that plans will always change. So in this case, we adapt and we overcome. And we went ahead and just made our own trim. You might ask yourself, well, how did you do that with not having it? Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, even if you don't have all the tools in the world, as long as you have a table saw, that's really all you need. Because most 2x4s out of the store, all their edges are naturally going to have a rounded edge on the outside corner. So all you have to do is just measure the depth that exists between the outside frame and the window itself, and then just go ahead, set the width on your table saw, cut it at 90 degrees, and then rotate it 90, cut it again, and then you're left with a nice long straight piece that's curved on one side. So, and then you can use that to just go ahead and trim around your edges, and you're good to go. And if you want to take the time, you can go ahead and bevel your corners and make them all nice and flush, which really isn't hard to do. If you want to make a good flush corner, just if you do have a speed square or something to make a perfect 45, that's great. But even using a square, it doesn't always come out right. So all you got to do is just cut one angle to approximately what you think 45 degrees would be, set it in the corner, and then just go ahead, take your next piece, and then just go ahead, match it up to that corner, and then just draw your line from there to there. Once you cut that, it's going to fit in perfectly with whatever piece is there, whether or not it's at 45 or not. So now all you got to do is remove the broken window from its existing place in the window frame, and go ahead, transplant this new recycled piece of glass, and go ahead and tack it in with some finishing nails or brads of your own. Now, I will just say though, you got to be very, very careful when you're doing that, because you don't want to have all this time go to waste. So when you're inserting your brads, you can see you really don't have much room to work with, and you don't want to break this glass you just spent all this time trying to salvage. So when you do cut in your brads, you have to make sure that you come in at an angle, so when that brad goes through, or nail, or whatever you use to hold it in place, it does not hit the glass. If it does, it's going to break, and you just wasted a lot of time and effort. Alright, so now that we're going to go ahead and install our new window pieces, one thing that comes in handy is getting yourself a little pneumatic brad nailer. It doesn't take much O2 from a air compressor. You can pick this up for probably 20 bucks from somewhere like Harbor Freight. Real simple, easy to use, like I was saying. You want to make sure you get in at a steep angle, almost as close to the glass as possible, so it's almost parallel, because if you hit that glass, it's going to break it. Now these things have a little safety on the end of them, so you have to push that in order to use it. So you go ahead and put in your brad. We'll start all the way over in the end here. Let's go ahead, push that down, get as parallel as we can, just like that. So as you see, those come out with a lot of force, so if I was to hit the glass with that, it would make it shatter, but that's simple, that's tight, that's not coming out. So you just continue that all the way around your edges, and that's how you install your window. So, if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it comes in handy. This is DIY Dom saying, have fun, get out there, be creative, and do something innovative today.